What's up, YouTube peeps and barbecue freaks? Thank you guys for joining me today. Today I'm going to do another brisket video. However, this one's going to be a little different. This one is going to be a video of how I trim a brisket for competition. So a competition style trimmed brisket video. I did another one, a brisket video, I think it was last week or I don't know, 2 weeks ago. And some of you have asked me to do a video on how I trim a competition, or how I trim a brisket for competition. So that's what this is going to be about. I'm going to go from beginning to end, and we are going to cook this. In this video, I do talk about why I trim it up the way I do, the benefits of it, my thinking behind it. It's an aggressive trim. I mean, I literally take the brisket and almost, trim it down to half its original size. So, but there's reasonings behind that, and I talk about that in this video. So if you want to know how I do that, stick around because it's coming up next. Alright, so what I have here is it's a natural Angus brisket. I was able to find one on sale. I couldn't pass it up, but this is actually a really small one. This is only about 6.5 pounds. I normally get them bigger than this, and I'll shoot for about a 12 to 14 pounder, and then when I trim it up, I usually trim it up to about 7 to 8 pounds. But this one I found wasn't very big, which is okay, because I'm simply just going to show you how I trim it up for competitions. And so weight wise, for this cook, or for this video, doesn't really matter a whole lot. I'll tell you what I did do so far. I removed some of this fat here. There wasn't a ton of it. This hard fat here. I went ahead, excuse me. I went ahead and removed that. But what I'm going to do next, excuse me, is, so if you've ever seen the styrofoam turn-in boxes for competitions, the top of the box, when you lift the lid up, the bottom where the meat lays, the box kind of comes down at an angle, and the top of the box is about, I think it was like 7 inches, and when it gets to the bottom, it's about 6.5. So I usually try to trim my briskets. I'll trim the sides off here, and I usually try to make it about 8 inches. Now this brisket is actually really small, so I'm not going to be able to make it 8 inches, which means, right now if I measure it, I'm sitting at about 7 inches. So if I take off an inch on this side and about a half an inch on this side, we're looking at about 5.5, 6 inches. So, but normally what I would do, again, this is a smaller brisket that I would start with, but you're still going to get the idea of what it looks like. So normally what I would do is I would measure out 8 inches from end to end and make a mark. In this case, I'm going to make one. Actually, I want to come in about an inch. So right here, a light mark, and then on this side over here, we're going to go about right here, and then we'll just take that right across here. Again, scale wise, this is a lot smaller than I would normally start with, but you still get the idea. It's the same premise. So I'm going to take that, and then on this side here, where I drew that line at, or where I marked that line, we're going to make sure we come down here also. Now for competition briskets, I get really extreme on my brisket trimming. I mentioned just a little while ago that Normally I start with about a 12, 13 pound brisket, and I trim it to about 7 to 8 pounds. So I take off quite a bit. Part of that is, one, I'm not trying to feed the masses. You know, I'm there to, for the most part, I'm there to compete, turn in my meat, cook my meat, turn in my meat, and get out of there. So, you know, I don't need to cook a big old brisket. Now, if I was doing, you know, some competitions are a little different, or some events are a little different, where we do feed the masses, give out samples. So I would probably treat it a little different, keep it a little bigger. But for the most part, you know, I'm not there to feed people. I'm there to compete. So if we turn this sideways, you can see how thin it is, right? Just move it out of the way. Next, this point down here, I mean on the flat, we're gonna trim that up. I usually come up about 1 inch or half an inch to 3/4 of an inch. Trim that up, and then I'm gonna kind of round it off. The reason I trim it so aggressively is, one, I'm not trying to feed people. Like I said, I'm there to compete. But two, it also allows the brisket to cook a whole lot faster. I can get a brisket done, a competition brisket done, in about 5 hours. And that's not cooking hot and fast. You know, that's cooking at about 275, which, I mean, I guess some might think that that's a little hot and fast, but, you know, 275 really isn't. So that's what that looks like. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on this point part. Down here in Texas, we don't turn in burn-ins, so we don't cook them. Now, well, we don't cook them or turn in. We do cook them, and that's what the cooks eat. But the point here, we're not really going to need it. So what I'm going to do is, right where this fat and meat, the fat and the meat, I'm just going to I'm going to make a light curve, and I just want to round that off. Yeah, if I'm happy with that, then I'll go ahead and make the cut all the way through. So basically, I'm removing most of the point right there. Okay. There's still a little bit of point meat here, so it's not, as you can see, when I lift it up, you know, you still have a little bit of point meat here. So it's not completely gone, but most of it is. So we're going to take this, set it aside, and I'm going to come through and just round this off. Again, I'm a lot more aggressive than a lot of people that you're used to seeing. So some of you are going to look at this and be like, holy crap, like you butchered that, or you know, you wasted so much meat. I don't really waste the meat. The meat that I cut off, I actually save, and I'll use that for other stuff later. So it's not a complete waste. But this is kind of what it looks like. When we're done. You know, it's not a very big piece of meat, and you can see why, or you can see how I get it done, get it cooked in about, you know, 4 to 5 hours. I mean, it's not very big, but when I inject it, I'm looking for my scissors real quick. When I inject it and stuff, it's still, you know, it has tons of of moisture in it. So just like in the last video, remember these ends, you want to make sure we come through and round them off. What this is going to do is help with that shredding at the end when you go to cut it. I explained that more in my previous brisket video. So I will come in here and get on this fat cap side. You can see, in this fat cap there's still quite a bit. So I'm going to trim some of this off, because that's way too much fat. Alright, so I got this fat trimmed up, and as you can see, it's not very thick at all now. And it's really even. This brisket, when I laid it down flat, I don't like this here. This fat cap, they trimmed this off, or they trimmed part of this off somehow for some reason, but that's alright. That's not going to hurt us at all. But this is what it looks like when it's completely done. Again, this is a lot smaller than ones that I would normally do. But keep in mind, in competitions, I'm only turning in 9 slices. So, you can have a big old 12, 14 pound brisket. You could cook that if you want, but you're only turning in right in here. My turn-in slices, my 9 slices are gonna come from about right in here. So I get a little bit of the flat and I get a little bit of the point. So if that's all I'm turning in for competitions, I don't need a huge, 12, 14, 15 pound brisket. I just don't. Not for competitions, not for turn-in. This right here, it's perfect. Not only is it going to cook faster, but it's going to cook a lot more evenly. I don't have to start it too late at night, and it'll get done 4 to 5 hours. So for competitions, this just kind of makes sense. Again, I'm not trying to feed the masses. Some don't even let you, some competitions. In fact, my next competition coming up, one of the rules is we can't give away food to the public, because the place that they're having it at, they actually have a food vendor. So, they don't want us to take away from that food vendor. So, if my 9 slices are coming from right in here, all the rest of that brisket, I really don't need. So, when I trim it up for competitions, I do waste a lot of meat, or I do remove a lot of meat, but I don't waste that meat. I save that meat, and I use it in a stock or something else. Now the point here, okay, I don't get rid of the point. This is, I'm going to trim this up, and I'm going to throw this on the pit as well in competitions. And like I said earlier, this is what the cooks eat. We make burn ends and just hang out and have some delicious, succulent burnt ends. So this doesn't go to waste. This actually is going to get cooked also. So I'll trim this up a little bit and just kind of show you what that looks like. All right, so here's the point. I got that trimmed up some. Got the fat off the top. And, we're going to season this up just like we will the brisket. And throw that on. There'll be some good eating there. We'll make some burn ends out of that. So that's what that looks like. Again, one last look at the brisket itself. Let me get this out of the way. So my competition brisket, this is what it looks like trimmed up. Hope you guys can see that. There you go. So nice and flat, which is perfect. The sides are even. This piece of brisket here is going to cook extremely even. It's going to cook fast. Again, it's going to get done in about 4 to 5 hours, which is perfect. Again, remember, the turn-in slices are only coming from right in here. Even if I left this brisket whole and didn't trim anything, the turn-in slices would still come from right in here. So, you know, if whether you leave it whole or go really extreme with the trim, if this is the only spot that you're taking your slices from, it just, you know, just kind of makes sense to trim it smaller, cook it faster, let it cook a lot more evenly. So that's what it looks like. Again, this is just a competition trim. This isn't, you know, if I was cooking for a party or anything like that, or, you know, feeding a bunch of people. So that's what that looks like. That's my competition trim brisket. You see the fat cap on the bottom is very even. There's, you know, this fat cap here. Actually, I think it's a little more better this way. This fat cap here, as you can see, is not very thick at all, but it's even all the way across. Same thing with the other side. You know, it's pretty even. You can see in here we get a little bit of the flat and point together. So this is going to be perfect, absolutely perfect. So I am going to cook this. We'll get it on the grill on the Weber Smoky Mountain. I actually may use my Weber kettle, but this video was mainly to show you how I trim a brisket, a competition style. So that's what we're looking like. A lot more aggressive than most people. So I hope you guys found that helpful. I hope I explained well enough why I do it this way, you know, for competitions. So some of you have asked for this video, so here you go. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, share this video, subscribe. Again, you guys, I cannot thank you enough for all the support you guys have given me. It just means the absolute world to me, and I'm so grateful for it. So I will see you guys next video. Make sure you come back. Thank you again. Until next time, take care.